While the Crusades into the Holy Land are by far the most well known of their kind, some of you may be interested to know that they were far from the only crusade of the medieval period. From northern Germany and Poland all the way up to Finland and many places in between, various lesser known crusades were launched following the first crusade into the Holy Land. One such example of this, and that which I'm going to be covering in today's video, is the Prussian Crusade, launched in the 13th century by the primarily German Teutonic Order with the aims of Christianizing the pagan Old Prussians. So, with that little intro out the way, and without further ado, let's get straight into the video. The origins of the Prussian Crusade can be traced back a couple hundred years before its actual events, to the Poles who made countless attempts from about the year 1000 onward to Christianize and conquer the native Baltic inhabitants of Prussia, who at the time followed a pagan religion which heavily emphasized ancestry worship and the sacredness of all natural forces and occurrences. These Christianization attempts were met with fierce resistance from the Old Prussians, with many missionaries sent to the lands being killed and Polish incursions relentlessly opposed. While there was periods of peace between the Poles and the Prussians, tensions began to greatly escalate in the lead up to the Crusade when, either in retaliation to the actions of the Sword Brothers, another crusading order in Latvia and Estonia, or fears of Christian Polish expansion, or both, the Prussians launched incursions into Polish-held land and besieged numerous towns. It was in response to these actions that in March 1217, Pope Honorius III sent a papal bull to Christian of Oliva, the first missionary bishop of Prussia, allowing him to begin preaching a crusade against the resisting Prussians. The following year, the Prussians once again attacked into Poland, plundering 300 cathedrals and churches, seemingly in revenge for these preachings. Duke Conrad of Masovia, a Polish noble, only managed to make the Prussians leave by paying a huge tribute, which unsurprisingly only encouraged them further. It was the year after these attacks, in 1219, that German and Polish crusaders first began gathering in Masovia around modern-day Warsaw, though serious planning only began a few years later in 1222 upon the arrival of nobles such as Duke Henry of Silesia. All the lords agreed that this first military action would be primarily focused on rebuilding the fortresses of Chelmno land, and especially the town of Chelmno itself, which had been the subject of much of the Prussians' aggression, as it was close to the border. This task was completed, however by 1223 most of the Crusaders had left the region, likely due to conflict between the dukes, which resulted in the Prussians devastating the land once again shortly after, this time reaching much further into Poland, even up to Gdansk, forcing Duke Conrad to flee and seek refuge in the castle of Plock in central Poland. In response to these ever-worsening attacks, in 1225, 14 North German knights were recruited by Conrad and Christian to form a military order which became known as the Order of Dobrin, and had initial success in driving the Prussians from Chelmno, though a Prussian counterattack soon pushed them back out, resulting in Conrad himself killing most of the surviving members of the order. Following this order's failure in 1226, with the permission of Duke Conrad of Masovia and other Masovian nobility, Christian of Oliva requested aid from the Teutonic Order against the Prussians. While the Grand Master of the Teutonic Order, Hermann von Salza, was interested in the Polish offer, his focus at the time was on assisting Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II with the Fifth Crusade. Regardless though, it is thought that Hermann met with the Emperor anyways to discuss the matters, in which he suggested that the subjugation of the Prussians would make the Holy Roman Empire's borders much easier to defend against invaders. This seems to have convinced the Emperor, who then gave his approval of the crusade in the Golden Bull of Rimini, granting the Teutonic Order Chelmno land and any further conquests for themselves, something which may have been of particular interest to Hermann, who, following the Teutonic Order's expulsion from Burzenland in Hungary previously, desired greater autonomy for his forces in future endeavours. This, combined with the Emperor's approval, seems to have convinced Hermann and the Teutonic Order to agree to take part, and thus the crusade would go ahead, though still under the command of Bishop Christian of Oliva. The Teutonic Order went on to set up a staging point at the castle of Vogelsang in 1230 and began launching small-scale raids against the Prussians on the south side of the Vistula River, an area which was relatively safe as it had a mixed Christian and pagan population. As more and more reinforcements began arriving at Vogelsang, which actually means birdsong in German, the Crusaders, mainly comprised of Poles, Germans and Pomeranians, ventured further and further into Prussian territory, establishing many fortresses along the Vistula River as they went. In the summer of 1233, the Knights, having been reinforced by the new Pope Gregory IX, led a crusading army of 10,000 into Pomerania in western Prussia, where following a close battle the pagans were routed on the frozen Surgun River, with the battlefield subsequently being known as the Field of the Dead. More boosts came to the crusading army when the Teutonic Order absorbed what remained of the Order of Dobrin, the ones that Conrad hadn't killed, in 1235, followed 2 years later by the assimilation of what remained of the previously mentioned Sword Brothers or Livonian Order, who had nearly been wiped out by the Lithuanians in the Battle of Saul in 1236. With these new men and the support of Henry III, Margrave of Meissen in modern-day Saxony, Germany, the Crusaders advanced north along the banks of the Vistula and forced the submission of most Pomeranians. Following this success, in the following years the Crusaders pushed further and further into Prussia, campaigning against the Pogozzanian, Bartian, Natangian, and Warmian tribes. In the campaign against the latter of those, the Prussian resistance was seen in full effect when the Warmians killed their own commander Kodrun after he advised that the pagans should surrender and convert upon seeing a large Crusader army outside their fortress. After the success of these campaigns, the Teutonic Knights' advance would finally be slowed by the outbreak of the First Prussian Uprising in 1242, in which Prussians of the conquered territories, with the support of Christian Duke Swantopelk of Pomerania and the ruler of Gdansk, launched an armed uprising against the invading knights. Unluckily for the Crusaders, their capacity to resist during this time was greatly weakened, as there were fewer German Crusaders arriving, and the Polish princes once again began feuding amongst themselves. This uprising eventually resulted in a peace deal being made, in which the Teutonic Order guaranteed personal rights to all Prussians who converted to Christianity, though this unsurprisingly didn't do much, as most Prussians did not wish to convert at all, and the knights still swore to root out paganism. Regardless, the treaty was never truly enforced nor adhered to, and after the Battle of Krucken in November 1249, where the Prussian Natangians achieved a victory over the order and massacred and tortured 54 knights who had surrendered, relentless fighting soon broke out once more. After the Western Prussians had been well and truly forcibly colonised by the early 1250s, the Teutonic Knights continued their advance north and east, next facing the Sambians of the thickly populated Samland region, with the Sambians initially repelling the Crusaders and even killing the army's leader Heinrich Stango of Kreisburg in 1252. Following mass reinforcements and the summoning of a 60,000 strong crusading army, including Bohemians and Austrians for the first time though, the Sambians were crushed at the Battle of Rudau. The Sambians who accepted baptism were left alive, though those who resisted were killed en masse. Following more conquests elsewhere, Samland itself was fully conquered by the Crusaders in less than a month in January 1255, owing to its destroyed army. It was in Samland, near the native settlement of Tvangsti, that the Teutonic Knights founded Königsberg, now known as Kaliningrad, that would become Prussia's most important city in the centuries to come. With the fall of Samland, the Crusaders had conquered practically all of Prussia, and soon turned their attention to other neighbouring Baltic groups, where they were actually defeated at the Battle of Skłodas in 1259 and Durba in 1260 by the Samogitians. These victories inspired yet another uprising amongst the Prussians, known as the Great Prussian Uprising in 1260, with these Crusader defeats seemingly reinforcing the validity of their pre-Christian beliefs. This uprising, similarly to the first, proved to be a great challenge to the Crusaders, who despite their gains in Prussia were still mainly focused on the Holy Lands, and thus could only spare few reinforcements to complete the Christianization of Prussia. The Crusaders were only able to turn the tide against the rebellious Prussians with the assistance of important German nobles in 1265, and in the years following the Crusaders gradually killed or forced the surrender of each Prussian tribe's war leader, while killing the native population en masse if they refused to convert to Christianity. Following their defeat, the tribal chiefs who remained in Prussia in the aftermath became vassals of the Teutonic Knights, who began rebuilding their now destroyed castles in stone or brick rather than the previously used wood to provide greater protection against the natives. In the following decades, sporadic resistance continued, though eventually this settled down as the native Prussians were slowly assimilated upon the arrival of large numbers of German settlers and slowly converted to Christianity entirely, with the Crusaders then targeting the Prussians' other Baltic neighbours in modern-day Latvia and Lithuania. However, those are stories for another day. Well guys, I think that's where I'm going to end the video. If you made it this far, just wanted to say I really appreciate you watching, and if you enjoyed, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me. But anyways, with all that being said, as always, I hope you all have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.